Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 97 of Discourse in Magic with Lloyd Barnes. This episode was a real hoot to record and really action-packed. You learn about how to get a product up on Ellusionist, how to create visual magic, why visual magic, and there's even a contest in there where if you win, you get a deck of cards sent to you by Lloyd Barnes. So, there's plenty of stuff for you, and I'm so pumped for you to hear it. Here it is, episode 97 with Lloyd Barnes. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah.
My name is Tyler.
And we are here with a very special guest. You know him from Ellusionist. You know him from his bonkers Instagram videos. You know him as an icon in Magic, and we're so excited to dive in. We are here with Lloyd Barnes. Lloyd, how you doing?
Hey guys, how's it going? I'm good. I was wondering who you were going to introduce then after that massive build-up. Who is this guy going to be? It sounds amazing.
Yeah, that's you. That's you.
Yeah. The check's in the mail. Don't say anything.
We got you covered. Lloyd, how you doing today?
I'm good. Apart from being cold here in freezing little Wales in the UK, I am doing pretty good, man. How's
what's
the
the temperature there right now? I'm actually curious.
What's that?
What's the temperature there right now?
I think so we say it differently to you guys, right? But I think it's around like 2 degrees.
Well, we do Celsius.
All right, so we're 6 degrees Celsius, which isn't so bad, but it's like ice blast.
Oh, okay. You got nothing on us. It's negative 2.
Yeah, you got nothing on
you guys
us.
actually live in the snow. What? I can't even complain. I feel terrible. I want to start again. No, I don't. I'm sitting here in like a warm, dusty house. You're living
warm and hot.
You guys live in igloos. I'm like, I'm so cold right now.
Yeah, exactly.
I did yard work in a sweater yesterday because it was 5 degrees. So there you go.
I would literally be bubble wrapped under that.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm glad you're cold. Okay, we're colder. I'm just kidding. So, anyways, good to have you on. Excited to dive in and chat Magic. We'll start the episode the way that we usually start, which is, how did you get into Magic? How did you get bit by the bug?
So probably a generic story, but my grandfather got me into it when I was 5 years old. He had like an interesting background in Magic. He ran away from the Blitz in London during World War II when he was like 9 years old. Both his parents died, so he was just a kid like running wild, and joined a traveling circus for 20 years and met a magician.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, right? And he met this anyway. He met the traveling magician, and my granddad would make tricks for him and stuff, and like create tricks. And so when I was 5 years old and old enough to understand magic, he showed me like a few tricks that he created, and that's like the rest was history. And I kind of went in and out of magic for a few years and then got back into it later. But yeah, generic grandfather teaching me magic story as a child.
Well, but there are some cool parts of that story.
Yeah, I wouldn't call that
particularly
generic.
that he created tricks, and now you're not just a performing magician. You legitimately create tricks, and you facilitate the creation of tricks. So there's still something interesting going on there.
I'm gonna say it was more of a plot to a Sundance
Say that again.
movie. I was gonna say it sounded more like the plot to a Sundance movie than a generic how did you
Baby
get into
Rambo
magic?
style movie. I think like maybe it's because like the first trick he ever showed me was nothing like a card trick. It wasn't a coin trick. It was literally a trick made out of like, it was like it's hard to explain over the thing, but it was a creative trick, and maybe that's what like put me on this path as opposed to just being a performer and solely a performer.
Yeah, I think a lot of magicians have a different developmental process, and a lot of that is dependent on who you learn from and what their process was. So if you learn from a creator, it makes sense that you would become one. And if you're the type of person who learned from a businessman, it would make sense that you get you do the working gigs and that stuff. Or if you learn from someone who's just a collector, it would make sense that you buy every product that comes out.
100%. Your surroundings, your environment have a massive impact on everything you do in this art. I think everything inspires you at every moment, and one thing that you see could just change the course of everything you do in Magic.
For sure. So where did it go from there? You started with an interest in Magic, you dabbled in and out, and then paint us a little bit of a picture about how you got to where you are today.
So it's kind of an odd story. I was born with like really bad skin, like called eczema on my hands. So when I went to school, and they told me I'd never go to a normal school. And I did. I ended up going, but I did all my exams. And in the UK, we call them like GCSEs. I think you call them SATs in over your side, maybe.
In Canada, that's not. But whatever.
So I did all my formal education on a computer by typing, and they said that I'd never do anything that would rely on me using my hands for a living. So I sort of ruled out. Sort of ruled out for a while, like magic, and I went off and did a bit of. I was always going to do sport. I liked boxing and gymnastics. I was really into that. And at the time, I started studying like media in university. So this is like skipping a bit. And then one thing led to another. I punctured my lung, so I had to like sit down for 9 months. I couldn't walk, and then as I recovered from that, I tore my Achilles tendon, so I couldn't move again.
Oh my goodness! Sit down, sir.
I'm an idiot sometimes. So
magicians aren't physical people. So don't you know magicians aren't physical people? Like he
didn't yet know that he was a magician, so he was still trying to be physical. He didn't know he was a magician yet.
Ghostbusters right now. I'm not even joking. I'll put a picture somewhere. I used to have a rock hard 6-pack for years, and then I became a little lard ass. But yeah, so I did that. I got injured. And this is during university. I ended up being in a bit of trouble at university, and in my final year, I got kicked out. So basically, I was not in university. I wasn't able to train or anything, and I had like 18 months to get back into magic. And I'd been in and out of it for a little bit, but as soon as that happened, something clicked one day. I think I sold like my first trick around that time as well to a little company. And it just made sense to carry on doing that. And then the rest was just full-time magic, nothing else. Nothing interests me. I give up everything for magic.
So that's good to hear, because I love hearing.
We
other
have
people.
A proposition for you, and it involves giving up everything else in your life.
No. I have a special place in my heart for people who dive full all the way into magic and punt everything else, because it was a tough decision I had to make when I finished university. And I know there's a lot of people who are listening to this who are probably on the fence, or maybe they have a boring job where they're trying to leave. Or
it's also great to hear success stories of people doing that, because we've gotten those emails from people being like, "Hi, I live in wherever, and I'm 35, and I quit my job to be a magician because of your podcast." And it's like I'm 22. I'm not there yet.
I'm the biggest advocate for just leaving everything and doing magic. Like, even if you're broke, like literally, I've had no home, had no money, and I have this like stern attitude where I refuse to go into like a full 9-to-5 job, because magic was only going to be the option for me. So I remember being like broke, having nothing, literally not having a place to stay. I was sleeping on my auntie's sofa, and she had a cat, and I'm allergic to cats, but I just toughed it out. And it was like, I'm not doing anything but magic. I don't care whether that makes me homeless for the rest of my life or dead. I absolutely refuse. And I think,
and there's something so cool about making a living pretending to do something. Like, there's something so fun, something so fulfilling about it. Like, what are you doing? Well, I faked making this disappear, and then I faked, I didn't really do any of it, but people are paying me to pretend. Exactly. Yeah. Right. So that's awesome. And then, so what is it like now? So I know you're working with Ellusionist. Tell us a little bit about what it is specifically you're doing with them, and then sort of what your day, week, month, is made up of, in terms of how much magic are you doing in terms of your own performing? How much is it of you working with the team, stuff like that?
So what I do for E is two things. It's like kind of three, but one of it is product or tricks. So either creating tricks or taking tricks that have been submitted to us or that I find, and then usually they need some TLC to make them more marketable or commercial, or just to improve elements of them. Like, some effects will have a really good principle at play, but they only know how to apply it to one area of magic, and it has to be set up for days in advance, and you can't make it impromptu. So it's basically like making tricks practical, making them performable, or as best you can, because some cases it's not doable. But basically, yeah. So everything to do with, I'm the guy that reads the emails. When you submit a trick to Ellusionist, it comes straight to me. So then I review it. I decide if it's good enough. Sometimes I'll help someone to make it better and say, "Listen, come back." And then I present it to the team, as a little bit of like a portfolio of the effect, and we do a vote, a best of 5 vote. So we do that with my tricks, with anyone that submits their tricks, and everyone on the team's tricks. We all decide, go through me a process, and then we decide as a team. And then the other part of my job is to film and edit the trailers. So I used to do that as a side part of the job whilst McKinnon was here, Peter McKinnon. And then Pete took off to do better things or greater things that he was more passionate about. And I've sort of taken over his role now. And we've taken on another video editor that does what I did. It's like a sideline thing to sort of cover up the rest. So it's split between creating and developing tricks with artists and filming and editing. So it keeps me super busy, and the part that helps me travel is to go and film. So if it's an artist that's created something, they'll send me off to go film and develop the trick with them live, and then I'll come back and edit the trailers and the explanations, which is really cool. So in a day-to-day life, to answer like part 2, I'd probably get up on a Monday like I did today, make myself a coffee, answer like as many emails as I can get through on Facebook messages. I try not to reply to people on weekends, because I find that if I do that, then I don't get any time at all, because I am absolutely obsessed with Magic, and I have to stop myself. Otherwise, I get up in the middle of the night to like message people, to talk about it, everything. So I have to one like rule of thumb, which is just to not on weekends try my best to not. I end up doing it anyway. Who cares? But weekends I don't. So I'll get up on Monday. I'll answer a bunch of emails. And then I'll check in with the guys. I'll check in with Garrett and Clark and stuff, and see what's going down that week. What are we working on? What's in the schedule? And then I'll start chipping away at stuff. Maybe I'll have to edit some video. Maybe I'll have to take some time off, go to a coffee shop, and just start creating some tricks, or go up to like my little like magic room and get out like the cutting pad and start developing something. Cool. And then usually like midway through the week, I'll start receiving prototypes of new effects that are coming out, and I'll start testing them, making videos to show the team, to present them like a portfolio. And then usually by the Friday, we're sort of wrapping up and setting ourselves in place for the following week. And then in the overall scale of things is I usually spend about 2 to 3 weeks in the UK. If I can, I really like to, at the minute, like be grounded, because I've just bought my first house. But thanks, man.
Congratulations.
It's kind of crazy.
That's huge.
Yeah,
That's huge.
It's weird too. But anyway, so I'm trying to stay at home for the minute. But usually I'll be in the UK for a couple of weeks, and then I'll be flown to somewhere, and I'll shoot some magic, and then I'll either fly somewhere else or I'll fly back. And I'll be if you like see me on Instagram and Facebook stuff, I'm just basically dotting back and forth across the globe, non-stop, just doing magic. So that's exactly what I do in a nutshell. I don't really think there's anything else to it, but there's a lot of work to do, but not a lot of different types of work to do, if that makes sense.
That's awesome. And it seems like you're definitely the guy who has seen every level of quality and royal crap in terms of new magic, and what makes something good, what final tweaks are usually needed, and when you do something over and over and over again, you tend to see patterns. So if I was a young magician or an old magician or just a magician listening to this, and I wanted the secret in from Lloyd Barnes as to how to submit something to Ellusionist and make it good enough to make it through, what things are a must?
I say the number one problem is that people submit tricks the same day they create them. And you can usually tell because they film it at a desk, everything's sloppy, they screw the trick up, and by the end of the video, they'll end up saying, but you get the idea. Something which instantly makes me take notice of a good trick is if it's a live performance to actual people, because a lot of people don't. Right. Because to do that, you not only have to create the trick, you have to know the trick works, you have to test it and get rid of kinks. You also have to plan to have somebody to come out filming with you. And it sounds ridiculous, but just seeing somebody put that much effort.
It's effort. It means they care.
Instantly, those videos, I watch that and I'll watch that video through to the end. Another thing that magicians don't do, and it happens to everyone. I've just been in like some hot water for this recently, but some people do zero research at all. So they'll come up with something. I've been submitted the double lift before, and this is not a joke. Within the last 3 weeks, somebody submitted the double lift to us. Yeah, 100%. Like, and I like to reply to as many people as I can, because if you can see they're passionate and they just haven't seen this creation before, and you say, and you can see that they really believe it and it's a good thing, but it's just not theirs. I try and take the time to reply to them, and sometimes people can get real like shitty about it. they absolutely.
Sure.
So I often usually do the research for them. I'll find where it's from, the book is from, or whatever DVD it was released on. I'll send them the link. I'll show them everything. I'll say, hey, I'm really sorry, but great thinking, but it's just you were second to the post. And usually you can tell an artist the quality of their work if they're like cool about it. You can see that they're confident in their ability to create more magic, and that they don't care so much about releasing it, because they're willing to let go of the idea if they can get the proof. And then some guys come back and they freak out, and it's like you've destroyed their whole world, and they think it's the only thing they'll ever create in their life, and you've just turned it into flames. So yeah, there's things like that
sorry, but it's just nothing you can do about someone else having invented it.
Yeah, that doesn't that's not a Magic exclusive problem. If I were to try to sell someone an iPhone, they'd laugh in my face, right? Like, that's just the way it goes.
Exactly. And then the other,
I have this new idea.
I'll say the last thing that I look for is, or try to look past, or what's the word to look for? Well, the other thing that you see is that people will just submit, like we're trying to put out new and interesting Magic, so new concepts, new devices, new everything. And a lot of times people will submit just card tricks, which is almost like notes in a song, because they'll just take a double lift and they'll mix it with a pass and then a spread color, and it's great. And sometimes you get a really great card trick, and there's no denying that. That has a neat principle, but usually people, although they do create nice routines, it's not what we're looking for at Ellusionist, and it'd be better suited on other channels,
Right. It's sort of like an application of old tools versus inventing
it's like an amalgamation of ideas, or sleight of hand. But and don't get me wrong, some of this stuff can be amazing. And sometimes I even end up like contacting the guy and saying, listen, when you put this out, let me know so I can start using it. But it's just not right for us. And so I'd say to people, if they were looking to submit to Ellusionists, look for interesting principles, reach out to magicians that have knowledge, continue doing that as you learn to perform it and as you go through the motions, and speak to more magicians. And if you give it time, this process could take a week if you're really on the ball, and you could exhaust every avenue and find this as a new creation and find that it's easy to perform and it gets good reactions. Then come to me after a week. But in reality, it usually takes at least like 3 or 4 months to really get a trick into that sort of flow of where this could become a commercial success.
Right. And just, one of the things that we learned with sort of about Ellusionist when we were talking to Garant is that you guys have minimized the amount that you release, which means that sort of the quality has to be way up there. And particularly about the notes about the card tricks is, again, there's a place for a 19th version of a card trick, not bashing it. Maybe you've eliminated one slight and you've made it better or something of that nature. But the place for that might very well be, your lecture notes, like whoever this person X is, or, a footnote of someone's book, and I don't mean that negatively. I just mean it that, Ellusionist is trying to, once a week or however frequent it is, shock the Magic community, bring out something that's never been seen before. So definitely the idea of bringing something really new to the table and not just amalgamating old things together, particularly like you said, a double lift and then a pass and then a spread call or whatever, is I would take from this, an in to do something big is to do something
and I mean, there's places for everything you work on, I think. Like I have a bunch of card tricks that are just card tricks, so have kind of interesting principles and stuff, but they're all being written up somewhere to go into a book, because to think that you would want to, well, first of all, you shouldn't want to release everything you work on. And I put a little bit more out than usual because of the position that I'm in. But still, not everything has a position. So if you have just card tricks, then there's nothing wrong with compiling them into a book or putting them as one-off little pamphlets and releasing them. There's no harm in that whatsoever. And I think I almost think it's have you ever seen people who do cover songs and they go and do gigs at weddings and stuff? Now, there's a certain
Mm-hmm.
art to choosing the right song to cover. I don't sing or anything, but you see these people. Some guy, there's a certain art to knowing what the audience are going to like for certain venues. There's a certain art to choosing the right songs that suit you. And I think it's like the magic industry. There's a certain art form to choosing what to put out, where to put it. So not just saying, okay, this is a good trick, it's got to go on Illusionist. Well, it may be a dope card trick, but that could be suited way better on another company's. Vanishing Ink do loads of good card routine stuff.
Sure.
So take it to them instead. Your chances are through the roof getting it there, and then really minimal getting it through us. But then again, you could have a really interesting gimmick or like device, which we have the ability to go off and make, in mass production. Then it's probably not best to go to some of the smaller channels and then come to us directly. So I think there's a bit of an art form, not art form, but there is some psychology behind. Well, not psychology. It's about just sort of researching who you want to work with and why.
Yeah. Understanding.
I think.
That's awesome. You mentioned that, part of what you do is having to create, and I think you go to a coffee shop and you sit down and you start creating. We've spoken to a lot of magicians about what their creative process is, or even just how they can sit down and create. I know for me, it's so hard when I sit down and I try to create. It's like I'm staring at a blank piece of paper. But it's like when I'm doing something different, when I'm like washing the dishes, I go, oh my gosh, and then like I still have wet hands, and I pick up the cards and I'm putting this thing that I just figured out, or I come up with this idea and I like call a friend of mine. So for me personally, I have a friend, same guy, who I call to help me work through an idea. If I didn't have him, I don't know if I would have any like fleshed out idea. So how do you come up with something? How do you create?
There's a few different like avenues. So I've tried over a long time, like every time I've been asked this question, to sort of give a better answer than the other. Sometimes I hear people saying, no, just go off and do it, man, or do this. But there's one way I look at creating is I'm really relentless. Like I'm really strict. So I try not to settle for anything. For instance, if I'm going to do a color change, right? So I put this trick out a while ago called Change, and it had mixed reception, but it was like one of the best-selling items we've ever had out, and it's something I perform loads. And it's a slow motion like color changing card. And for me, it was a creative exercise just to come up with that, was to create a color change that had no basis of any pre-existing methods that I could find. So the first thing was flap cards were deleted. They don't exist anymore to me. So flap cards are no. Right. So that's where usually most people end their creativity, is they go for the first idea they have. And like, have you seen all these chewing gum tricks that people put out, and they all change, and every single one of them has a flap? There's not many do it different, right?
Yeah, it's all the same.
Right. So
like
trick. Usually the first thing for me is if I'm working on something and I have an idea, I'll throw out like the rule book essentially, or anything I can see that exists already, and
yeah, that's not the first time that we've heard the idea of using restrictions on your creative process to further it.
So I don't create for the sake of creating. So say somebody does have a color change and it looks wicked, I won't go, okay, I'm going to try and make that better just to make that better, or change the method, just for the sake of changing the method. It has to improve it in some area. So whether that makes it more visual or more practical, you have to have some of these elements coming into play as you're working on it. So that's like one element of how I create, is that there's no point in, like, you can rediscover or you can discover new avenues within pre-existing methods, but it's really rare, and you'll often find that somebody else has been there before and they give up on it, or it doesn't really bring much new to the table. So what I think is interesting is the reason I scrap those sometimes is just because after you've been through every method that exists, after you've tried your best to get through it all, you end up in like green pastures, in like new area. And then you discover something, or hopefully there's nothing new under the sun, but you'll come across something where it's like this huge field and you can just do anything. You can experiment, you can go crazy, and everything, you're getting new results. And every time you're getting that like dopamine release from creating or seeing something new that you haven't seen before, or at least you believe you really haven't seen before, then it inspires you to keep going. And that's when it turns into it turns into those late night sessions where you just feel like you're on a roll, because everything you're seeing is just like brand new information like popping into your eyes. So like that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is, for me, is I'll have an idea of a trick. Like I just put out a video on Instagram of a card melting through a bill, right? And usually when you so when you do this, when you I'm like a critic to my own stuff, but usually when people put the playing card through the bill, it's you don't really see it any other way other than the bill is folded around the card and it's pushed through, and it's like two different axes. It's A through B or X through Y. You can't actually. They say it's a visual trick, but it's not what I define it. To me, visual is actually seeing what you would see in a CGI recreated movie scene. Visual to me isn't covering where the card is penetrating through the bill by folding it. That's not visual. People often confuse that. That in my books, at high standards, that is not visual.
That's really interesting, because usually people think visual means that you see the thing happening, but you're sort of taking it a step further in a lot of the magic that you're releasing, where it's like no, visual means that you see the magic actually physically happening. What a great distinction.
It's a massive bone of contention I have. Like, say somebody puts a coin in their hand and their palm is face up, and they close their fist around the coin, and they open their fist and the coin is gone. 99.9% of magicians that I talk to would describe that as a very visual trick. And to me, unless I'm seeing that coin disappear without your fingers clasping around, unless I'm seeing it like the Star Trek Enterprise trying to beam that coin off my palm, that's not visual. So to me, I'm still trying to work on that concept now for a coin vanishing in slow motion visual style. I have some ideas, not good enough yet.
Right.
But it's relentlessness, and like I have like a lot of grit when it comes to creating tricks that I think have been done they don't meet the standards that I feel there should be there for them. So not saying like, this tricks that, the original card through bill, not saying that it's not a good trick, because it's a great trick and it gets great reactions. But for me, we're in 2018 now. Right. We can't keep doing that. We have to push further. We have to be relentless. And then you find once you say that you refuse to just settle on having a flap or having a slit, once you refuse to use that as your vehicle, then there's not really much place left to go other than new area,
right,
new grounds, and that's when you get into the exciting stuff, and that's when you get to create some really trippy type of magic.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we found solutions for, but they weren't as good. Like this isn't an example of magic, but a lot of the time people say, "Can you spring the cards in a rainbow, like in an arc from hand to hand?" Which for a long time was believed to be impossible, but is now there's people doing it, right? And the same thing applies for things that involve gimmicks. They're like, can you make a card change visually slowly? And the person who uses a flap card would say, well, no, I have a flap, right? The flaps are the way that happens. But if you take away a solution that's already there and does a good enough job, then you're going to push the whole industry forward.
I hope so. I've been trying to do it for so long, and it's not just me. I know there's other magicians out there that have the exact same way of thinking. And I think what it is, like, people talk about, like, I don't consider myself creative. I just think that I just don't give up. Mm-hmm. Like, because all the methods that I see people
tenacious.
Yeah, all the methods I see people putting out there, they're the methods that I'm thinking of too. So we're on this, whoever these people are, we're on the same page. Right. So I don't consider myself above them in creativity levels whatsoever. But I am relentless, and I think being relentless can lead to like innovative, can lead to like being innovative.
Right.
By luck or by chance or by purely being relentless, you can't go over old ground. And I think if more people worked on magic in that frame of mind, then we'd be far ahead of where we are today.
For sure. And there's a lot of like you explained, which is so fun to hear, about people submitting things which they came up with that day and then did it that day and didn't put that much into it. And obviously Ellusionist isn't going to say, well, this is the best thing ever, we pick you, like they need a lot of work, and that's what it takes to be groundbreaking.
And also, like for instance, some people will like submit like an A card, like any card at any number to us, and there'll be like a lot of variables to this effect, and they'll have to do a lot of work. Like they'll have to force the number with dice, and then they'll have to This playing card will be verbally forced, but they can't think of a number, can only, all these different avenues to it. And, by the end of it, they do end up with a new method or a new trick. But it's not, if you look at it, I want to say to them, take a step back, look at that effect. Are you proud of it? Would you want to put that out? Even though it's new, yes, it's new. What are you doing that makes you want to share that and let everyone know that you did that?
The key is new and improved, right? Not
new and improved.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and it should always be improved. And I mean, sometimes we get caught up in our own, I'm not sure if it's ego or by how excited we are by a new creation, and everyone falls victim to it now and again. But I think that's what you talked about earlier, having a friend that you can phone to sound off.
Yeah, just say do I sound like an idiot here, or is this a good idea? And they often say that's a good idea, or they might say, yeah, that doesn't work at all. And you're like, oh, okay, thank you, perfect, thanks for the call.
Yeah, well, Geraint Clark is my guy for that, and we were like, right, okay, we do these little games sometimes, like creativity games, and we just started the new team member at E. He's gotten into it too, and turns out he's way better than both of us put together. But we set each other a challenge, like, okay, Torn Sword card. How would you do it if you hand it to a spectator? How would they do it? So it's like, okay, we'll just go and find a person. So let's give this, hey, can you take this playing card? Can you tear that card up for us? And they just tear it. And now can you put it back together? And watch what they do, right? Literally watch what a person would do, what in their head would make sense. Right? So then this is something we worked on recently, and we do a little competition to win, and then the winner gets like a dinner bought for them or something. So then once we see what the groundwork is, what we see what the frame is, we'll set each other restrictions and say, okay, so now we have to create a torn or sword card. We can't use pre-existing methods, and it must be torn just in half, like a spectator would. So no folding it into quarters, because that's not normal to them.
Right.
Just ripping it in half like a piece of paper off the street, and then try and put it together in the same way that spectator tried to. And we set each other all these challenges, and we get 2 weeks to do it. And we end up sometimes with some amazing stuff, sometimes some really bad stuff that we'll never see the light of day. And this time, Dwayne Williams, who works with us, he came up with this Torn Sword card, which is like crazy. And it's literally, if you could tear a card in half and then put it back together, it's probably the way you would really do it. And this was just born from a competition that had a set of rules and a timestamp. And yeah, we just go off and do it like that. So that's another way of sort of challenging yourself by having a friend and then setting yourself a little challenge.
See, this is super interesting. Like, we've asked this question a few times. How are you creative? What's your creative process? And very rarely do we get like directed, here's how to motivate yourself to accomplish things answers.
Yeah, like, listen, if you're listening to this and you know at least one other magician in your life who you talk to even remotely often, then start a weekly challenge. Like, as a matter of fact, we might even make that as an interesting leg of the podcast. Recently, we've been doing challenges, but we've been doing a really crap job of them, because we're like, let's do a challenge for December, make it snow themed, and then we come back the next month and we're like, anything? Or like, nah, nothing.
Do this. Say, everyone, you have 1 week to create a Torn or Sword card, but you must just tear the card in half without folding it, without creasing it, and you've got to try and stick it back together like you think a spectator would. Upload the video to Instagram, #DiscourseInMagic, and the winner will receive a free deck of cards.
Done. That's live. Let's do it, guys. Okay, 1 week.
If you guys actually all do it, I'll send out the winning deck of cards from Ellusionist.
Done. Okay, do you hear that, guys?
It won't be bikes then, because that's what it was going to be.
As soon as this episode goes live, we have the challenge going live, and time to see how you do it. To be honest, I'm going to beat you all, to be honest. Okay, I'm going to win, so there you go.
The gauntlet's been set, my friend.
Challenge is out. I already have some good ideas. No, I don't have anything, but I will. We'll go hard. That's awesome. And I think that it's something like Tyler said, like something actually tactile that people can play with, where, one of the things about creating in Magic that is, again, apparent in the quantity of submissions that you get is, and no harm in people for doing this, but because of the way that Magic is structured, we look up to other magicians, and we look up to them because they are creators. So then all of a sudden people want to create because they want the notoriety of being a creator, but they don't want to create because they want a new interesting effect, right? They don't want to create because they're trying to, change the face of Magic. They want to create because they want recognition. you know?
Yeah.
And
you see this so much.
And of course, right? Because people are like, I want my face on Ellusionist, right? Like, I want my name to be the name that's up in lights and whatever the case may be. Where, like, and Tyler and I stress this a lot on this podcast, but there are so many different ways to do something interesting in magic. You can be a great performer. You can be a great writer. You can do lighting and sound for a great magician. You can help script writing. You can create magic. You can help someone create magic. Like, there's so many different things that you can do. And just, again, the way that magic is structured, because we all look up to other magicians, that's who we want to be. Like, we all want to like grow up and lecture, you know, which is so crazy, you know, that it's like,
I've never given a lecture, not one in my life.
But you understand what I mean, right? Where like magicians,
no,
like these young like 14-year-olds, like all they want to do is be a magic lecturer, and it's like, wouldn't you want to wish that you would accomplish something in the world of magic and then ideally tell people about it?
Well, this is it, man. And also, people ask like every single day, can they get a job at E?
Right.
And you've got to be multifaceted. You've got to be diverse. Like, if I wish I didn't have to do video, filming and editing. I wish I didn't have to do that as part of my job. But it's a set of skills that I also brought to the table, which meant that I fitted the bill at E, and it also panned out that the tricks I would create would be really successful. And if people are trying to get a job at E, I say to them, okay, what do you do? And they say, I create magic tricks. I say, wicked.
Oh, good.
What do you do? Yeah, it's like, cool. What do you do? And then I just create magic. It's like, all right, well, like, that's like everyone on the team does create magic.
Yeah, people who are creating magic are sending it to us for free every day. Like, it's not really that helpful.
Exactly. Why should we put you on salary for that? So people just, I think there's so many different avenues in magic that can help provide for you and put food on your table. But people, like you're saying, they see these creators, they think they're rock stars, and they want a piece of that pie. They want the notoriety. And sometimes you just gotta, there's certain people that will just be able to do that forever. But sometimes you gotta just think, okay, well, like people have a backup degree or whatever, they've got to just, diversify their skill set and bring something new to the table. Maybe they're great at writing scripts, like maybe they're good at film and editing. Web design's a huge one, graphic art, anything they can bring to the table. There's so many avenues that these companies and these businesses and even like theater and TV guys are looking for to add to their team, the arsenal of weapons that their team have. If you just learn something new, get proficient at it, at the same time as learning to create magic and perform magic, then it's pretty hard to go wrong trying to find a job in the industry. It's almost guaranteed.
For sure. Yeah. And that applies for, things outside of magic too. Like, I know we're advocates of not having a regular 9-to-5.
Hell yeah.
But if you're trying to find a job placement out there, like, I'm not saying you should put the fact that you do card tricks as the first thing on your resume, but like showing that you have other interests other than
miracles.
Yeah, no, but I mean, like, showing that you are interested in artistic things, and or if you're applying for a sales position, the public speaking might be one of those things. You know what I mean? Like, there's multifaceted areas.
Here's another thing which I think, so some people might not find their niche, right? But they might want to be part of this industry. One huge thing in this world, I think especially, is be good with people. If you're not good with people, learn to be good with people. You can read books like How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Seminars on this. Become a people person. Just devour people. I was lucky. I was from a single mother family, so I have no father. And my mum could just talk people to sleep, and she would just walk down the street, and I'd be like 5 years old, and I would be falling asleep because she'd be chatting for 2 hours. But it rubbed off on me, and I can go anywhere in the world, and I can just end up sitting with like 10 people having fun and games without knowing a single person before I walk in. And it helps so much in this industry. Sometimes we see people who we don't know what their skill set is, we don't know what they can do, but we want them to be, we just want to be connected with them on our team, or we want to work hand in hand with them somewhere along the line. So if your skills in other areas are not good, become a people person. Just be someone that other people want to be around, and you'll gravitate towards work. It'll find you. The work will find you. Whatever it is that you don't know you're good at, that will naturally find you, because the people that you're finding yourself in these new circles with.
Yeah, that's
for sure.
Huge. You know,
and that's part of the reason why, this podcast exists, because, I would love, in a dream world, for me to be a prolific creator, but to be brutally honest, that's not me. People were saying to me, when are you going to release something? And I got nothing for you. Like, I got nothing for you. Like, I got a version of a thing, but it's not groundbreaking. It doesn't even deserve a footnote. Like, so I started we started a podcast, right? Because like now I think I have a lot to offer in terms of talking about theory, talking about business. I think that interviewing people is very valuable, and that's my gift to the Magic community. Here, there you go. It's for you.
It 100% is, guys, because I've seen 100 podcasts start up and shut down within weeks. Your one just sort of works. Mm-hmm. Everyone knows what it is. Everyone follows it. It's the graphics that you put up on like Instagram with the moving audio sound pieces. All this stuff. All these little tiny bits of detail that you put into it, like the research you put into your guests that you have on, where other people just don't bother, and the way you interact with them, the quality, like even the fact that you were just telling me what mic and everything to use. I've done podcasts recently. I've done like 3, and people are like, whatever. And you're like, oh well, make sure you use a mic, make sure you do this, make sure you do that. And the fact that you've got another sound guy that everyone else can't see at home called Danny, who's checking the sound right now. All these details are the reason why you're almost at your 100th episode and still kicking ass.
Well, thank you so much.
Terrific, guys.
But it's my way of, mentioning for the people at home that, again, not being able to be a prolific creator should not stop you in doing something fun and interesting in the world of Magic. And whether it's, people are doing YouTube videos, great. You want to go on the street and do street magic a la David Blaine? No problem. Do you want to do sort of what Chris Ramsey's doing? Fantastic. You want, like, there's so many different ways to utilize the magic that you enjoy. And I don't know, just start doing it. We started a podcast because I like to talk, but I don't like the way my face looks on camera. So like I hate, someone turns on the camera, I become this like weird, like empty shell of a person. So microphone's easier for me. I don't know. So
oh man, I literally look like Jack Black with one less chromosome.
Oh my gosh.
I'm on camera. I cannot watch it. I hate it.
Oh man. But yeah, so I went with a microphone because you can't see my face and I can wear pajamas.
I think it's important to note for anyone who's looking into doing their own YouTube, Instagram stuff. I'm sure, Lloyd, you can attest to this. Editing sucks in general. Even if you love it, editing yourself is the worst thing you can ever do. You will just sit there and rethink every decision you've ever made that led you up to that moment because you are an idiot and you just don't know it yet. You don't know it until you watch a recording of yourself.
Honestly, the amount of times I mute myself because I sound like a fucking chipmunk when I talk. I mute myself. I cut the end of the video off. I cut the beginning of the video off.
And then I just cut out the middle of the video and I delete it. Who cares?
Oh my god. Brad Christian said, and he fucking destroyed me. He said that I look like Susan Boyle. I was like, oh god.
So and now I know that.
So I'll tell you something very funny about Susan Boyle. Then we'll get back into Magic. But on her second album,
this is the greatest
she released a hashtag, and the hashtag was Susan Album Party. And if you read that out as it's spelled, it's Sue's Anal Bum Party. And they had to take down the hashtag and delete the post and stuff. But it went pretty viral when it started, which was really funny.
This is why I release single tricks and not collections of tricks in albums.
Exactly.
Oh my god, that's the best.
Yeah, so there's a little factoid about Susan Boyle. So I wanted to ask you, we were talking about visual magic, and it seems like a lot of the stuff that you release is visual. So why visual? Where does that come up for you in terms of being, do you have like a special place in your heart about it? Do you feel that magic is supposed to be that way, or is that just sort of the direction in which you like to create?
2 reasons. First of all, literally, I started performing tricks when I was 14, and I absolutely hated the way I sounded and looked on camera. So it had to be tricks that would just explain themselves.
Right, not word heavy.
Yeah, literally, that's the God's honest truth as well. Because I like the visual tricks, but my favorite tricks that I'd seen up until then were not visual.
Right.
But it was because I absolutely had a huge problem with like watching myself on camera, especially listening to myself on camera. I can't stand it. And then as it got more and more into it, I guess because I sort of focused on visual magic more, I was paying more attention to other visual magic out there. And so much of it then came from apathy. And I'm not saying that anything that I've done, not one thing I've done is an improvement or is better than someone else's trick in the same category. But for me, I say all the time, I'm just so sick of people using the same methods with just, different color on it and this and that. And I kind of made a stance before I was looking to work in the industry. It was like a little, for a while, it was just like a little plight of mine to just try and change it as much as I could. Just try and make magic more visual just for my own satisfaction. And then it's sort of, I don't think I've got a bit of a branding for it, but I wouldn't say like a super brand like Madison style. But it's kind of like, I think, what people associate with me or what I'm synonymous for. And it sort of just became ritual then. It just became every day for me, and it's just what it is. I'm getting quite a lot into mentalism these days, though. Last year we put out an app called Cypher, which was like really cool and
awesome.
Got a good reception. And I use, when I perform, I start off with like visual magic, and then I usually end up with just hardcore hitting mentalism. So I'm leaning more into that these days. But my absolute passion is visual magic, and yeah, again, like I said, it's mainly out of apathy for bad visual magic.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that interests me the most about visual magic is like, it's the closest thing to, I don't know, like a drug trip versus mental magic. Because mental magic, you can think back and be like, well, maybe I'm misremembering that. Maybe he didn't actually put the thing in my hand. Maybe it wasn't a free choice or whatever. But when you're like, no, I saw that change color. Yeah. That spoon did bend in front of my face. There's just no denying 100%. It, right?
Yeah, that's it. And there's a big bone of contention between, I think, like in theory, between magicians across the world, where do you want your audience to believe, or do you think that you're making them out to be a fool if you expect them to when they know it's just trickery? And I do fall into that category of I am more than happy for them to believe that what I just did was absolutely real. And when you do like mentalism stuff, you can get people deciding on the method that they believe it is, whether they're right or wrong, and that's what they count it down to or count it out to. But like you're saying, especially if you do like some sort of magic, which is just, it takes 10 seconds and it changes over that period of time, or it penetrates through and you see it happening like CGI in front of your face. It doesn't matter what method they come up with afterwards, they can only recall on their visual memory of it, which ties themselves in knots. And there's something really nice about that, because you can't, they can't backtrack, and you get, I don't know, I really enjoy that. And if people ask me, is it real? I won't tell them that it's not real. Like some magicians go, no, it's just a trick. And a lot of magicians do that. So I won't
I fall into that category
that so quickly for them.
I don't know. I think it's a sort of a guilty pleasure of mine, is I love bursting that bubble more than anything. I literally do you want to know how I did it? Magic's not real. That's how. Go.
You show a kid, a little boy, his first ever silk vanish, and as his eyes light up, and you can see deep in his soul, he's going to take up magic in a couple of years' time. You just wiggle a thumb tip at him.
Yeah, no.
Kidding.
Kill the dream.
Gotcha.
You want to know the sad truth is that, like, you're not far off. Like, I did Arthur for a child once, and he loved it, and he wanted to try. So I just did a deck switch, and I let him. And then when the cards fell, he asked why it didn't work, and I said, because I was lying to you or something. Like, I don't know how I phrased it, but I let him go through the motions and understand that, like, if you did it with regular cards, it wouldn't work.
He's like, why can't I do this card trick? Because Santa's not real.
Yeah, because
so I literally have a story.
There is no God.
I was doing magic up at a summer camp, and when I was up there, the place that they had me stay is in the like the health center where the kids go when they're like injured or in pain or whatever. So I'm walking in because my room was near there. So I'm walking through the like lobby area, and the doctor who I'd been doing some magic for while I was there, there was a girl there, like absolutely like crying because she had really hurt her ankle. So I walk in and the doctor looks at me and I don't know what he was thinking, but he says to me, "Hey, Jonah, can you magically make her ankle better?" So all I'm thinking to myself is I'm like, do you not understand like that this girl, because this girl looks up at me with like one gleam of hope that I'm going to magically make her ankle better. And I'm like, and
just
I look at
because
him,
you don't think that her ankle being hurt is a big deal doesn't mean it's not the biggest deal in the world to that kid and that she believes in your magic.
Right. Well, now I'm about to let her down no matter what happens.
In two horrible ways.
This is her last, right? So I just look at them and I go, "Nah, sorry, magic isn't real." And I just keep walking.
Not only is magic not real, but your ankle
No,
still
you should have just
hurts.
looked them both dead in the eye and be like, yes, absolutely, but you can't afford it.
Yeah,
That's so good. I
If only
can't.
Mummy and Daddy had worked harder to pay your bills,
That's
then I would have fixed you. It's because your parents don't
absolutely
love you.
can, but you cannot afford it.
I could, but your parents don't love you enough to work hard.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And Santa's not real.
And by the way, there's no tooth fairy. So,
And by the way, your father is your mother's brother.
so now we are getting near the end of the episode where we wrap up, and we have some wrap up questions. We call them rapid fire questions, but you can answer them at whatever speed you like. The first of them is to keep this podcast going on for eternity. We have an endless chain of guest recommendations. So each guest recommends another guest to be on the podcast, and that way the podcast never ends. So who do you think we should have as a guest on the podcast?
Paul Harris. Oh, wait, can I answer this as fast as I want or as slow as I want?
Yeah, whatever you like.
Okay. Paul Harris. I think Paul Harris.
Great answer. We were talking about it on a previous episode that's unreleased.
Oh, really?
Where we haven't spoken to him yet, but
Okay.
on an unreleased episode, we're talking about some of our top
If
100
not,
people.
Ben Earl.
Both great
awesome.
Great
Yes.
ideas.
Ben Earl, I've seen his coin magic at the Setcher convention
bonkers.
last January. And yeah, that's real magic. That's I've seen that and I walked out there, I was like, magic's real.
Yeah.
That's the end of it.
Never mind.
No more
it's real.
discussion.
I'll take it back. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So Ben Earl, Paul Harris, 100%.
Awesome. So the next, I guess we'll do it in this order. Normally, we change up the order depending on sort of how the conversation is going. But I like the idea. We should stick to this.
I don't know what you're talking about yet, so we'll see.
Okay. No. I like this. I like the idea of guest recommendation and then magic PSA.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a sensical order because normally there's no flow. Not that there's flow now. I'm still rambling. I haven't asked the question yet. So this is the segment we call the magic PSA. Basically, you have the floor. You have our entire audience. You can give any word of advice or word of warning. It's up to you. It can be stop doing this, start doing this. What do you want the magicians of today to hear?
Okay. When you're performing magic, don't be afraid in the middle of your trick to put the deck down and talk to your audience. If they don't invest in you, if they don't believe that you're invested in them, why would they invest in reacting to your magic? I see magicians every single time I go out, or like every single time I go somewhere to see magicians and I see some of them perform, you'll usually see a guy that will go and do a trick and he'll say something that sets up a one-liner. Mm-hmm. And there'll usually be someone in the crowd that will say like, "Oh, just like my wife," or whatever, something back, just something to try and get a line of dialogue going. Or if it's a mentalist and he speaks to a woman, or I don't know why I'm saying woman, but he speaks to anyone and he says something about, have you ever lost a loved one? Some people say, yes, I have. And before they can even talk about their loved one, the mentalist goes, well, me too.
So here's a coin.
This is what I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they just start rambling and they just ignore them. And you can see the people, they look to their friends or they just look up and down and then they kind of just shy away. And magic's a two-way street.
Yeah.
And if you perform at people, then you may as well just stay at home. So don't be afraid to put the coins down. As long as everyone remembers where you are in the trick, and they don't lose too much direction, just get on with people and listen to them as you do stuff. And by the end of it, that's what I think makes like rock star magicians, when their audience just think that you're just awesome and not just a performing monkey.
Right.
Yeah, that's huge.
You're just real. You're just authentic.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Especially in close-up, I feel like, you know, when you when someone's figured out, I don't know what your approach is when you approach a table, but by the time they figured out that you're a magician, they either hate you or think that's one of the most interesting things they've heard in a long time. And
100%.
if they think that you're all of a sudden interesting, you need to be just as interested in who they are to make it a conversation, right? Like you know
what? Here's an interesting story, and this thing else as a PSA I've said before. There's don't be afraid to not do magic. Mm-hmm. So I was out before, and I was speaking to a guy, and we started both chatting. What do you do? What do I do? He writes music and plays in bands. I do magic, and he turns around, and I'll pardon the language. We went, "Oh, I fucking hate magic," and I laughed like, "Ha ha ha." And I was like, "Oh, I'm sure you don't." And he was like, No, I genuinely hate magic." And I was like, "Cool." And we sat down for about 2 hours. We got really drunk together, and we had loads and loads of fun. And to this day, I see him around my town. We have all the time in the world for each other, and we made a friend out of that. I didn't force magic down his neck. He doesn't like it. He was okay. Wasn't willing to, let me show him something. Whatever. I made a friend out there. It might have been one of those random drunk friends, but
those are some good friends.
I made a connection, yeah, and and then he hooks me up if he does like band nights and stuff. Then he gets me like guest entries and things, and it's just a good person to know. So don't be if someone's like maybe they say they hate magic because they're going through some shit and they just can't focus on a magic trick right now. Mm-hmm. Don't force it on them. Just be cool and you just don't have to also leave that table either. If you can see they want to connect and they want to chat, but they just don't want to see magic, well then just pull up a chair and if it feels right, just stay there. There's no need to, Absolutely. Some people, if you're the hired entertainment for that place, some people want someone to talk to, and just to sound off on. So if you're there and you're helping someone do that by not showing them a trick and they're more than happy and they want to talk to you, you're doing your job. Don't worry about it.
Sure. I was just also had another thought. Like it's interesting to think that like magic is your job, but not necessarily. You're there hired as a magician. So a lot of people come in and they only want to do card tricks, but you need to be comfortable talking about yourself. A lot of people are going to want to know how you got into magic and if this is the only thing you do and like what it means to be a magician might be just as interesting as the magic itself, right? Like the profession in general.
How often have you heard people say, "Oh, I just love to figure it out. I'm not too bothered about the trick. I just love to figure it out."
Yeah, all the time.
Well, those people, I read the survey that Joshua J put out, like this big the test that he did on like 500 people, the biggest of its kind, and it said like only 10% of people are more interested in how the trick works than the reveal or the revelation. But it was 10%. I'm pretty sure it was 10%. And I figure I meet these people like on a day-to-day basis, and I have no qualms. And I hate magic exposure, especially on YouTube and stuff. I think it's just nah. But when you meet someone that's like, I just absolutely love to figure out how it's done, and you kind of gauge them a bit. I'm happy to show them a really basic trick, and you end up that person. Then I literally have a friend that's like I've shown him tricks, and he went off and learned mnemonic. He's just magic awesome. Crazy because I didn't hold back. I could see that he actually was that 10%. And instead of going, "Oh well, it's my good sir, it's just magic. What is the art of country?" I was like, what? I'm going to show you how a few things work, and if you come back and show me that you're into it, then cool. So. Sometimes if you see a spectator that's like genuinely, I just like how it works, then maybe don't just be so up your own arse and get off your ego and maybe interact with them, and you might create a new magician. You might create a new magic buddy that you can actually sound off on and jam with.
For sure. I have so much to say on both of those things. The first is about the idea of sharing with people, like if they're inclined to learn. Obviously, we as magicians know the difference between someone saying, "How did you do that?" and someone like legitimately being interested in learning. But I have absolutely no problem teaching people a little trick that they can do. And people say like, "Wow, that'd be so cool to know how to do magic." I say like, I can teach you one. Like I can teach you how to do a trick. Yeah. Like, it's not going to devalue what I do. Like, I mean, this goes back to a little bit about what we were talking earlier, but like, in my head, I believe that my audience knows that it's not real. So what my thought process is, you and I both know that this isn't real. So me showing you how a thing works, nothing that I do, but a new thing, me showing you how it works so that you can do it, is not going to devalue what I do as being I'm not a witch. Like, you understand that, like, they're different things that you don't know how to do, particularly if it's somebody who is of that type of mind, right? Where they're like, how does that work?
Yeah.
How does that work? But they're not like, oh my gosh, like, am I dreaming? Are you God? Like different type of people. So like, if they're one of those like analytic people, then I don't mind teaching them something if that's what they want. So that Go ahead.
Go on, sorry.
Go ahead.
So you can always tell the type, because usually everyone says, how did you do that?
Yeah.
How did you do that? It's usually the guy that ends up lingering and trying to make an actual conversation with you,
For
guy or
sure.
girl. Their friends will go away and do other things, and then he'll sort of come back over to you and he can see you on your own, or after you finish him with another group, and they'll be like, hey, so I'm so fast. And you'll see they'll just be the not persistent, but they'll be the people that actually genuinely come up to you and show interest and try and relate to you. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, whoever says, how did that work? Then just don't go showing them how the double lift works. Like, no way. But if there's somebody who has a real interest, you'll be able to tell. We're human, you'll be able to tell. Then just, go for it. And you might just make the next, like, greatest magician. You never know.
For sure. And the other thing that you said that I wanted to comment on was about, putting the cards down for a second and actually talking to the person. And the part that's so interesting to me about that is, one of the things that I've learned over time, sort of outside of magic, but, people enjoy what they are invested in, right? So if someone like works so hard to like become a doctor, then it makes being a doctor all that much better because they worked so hard on it, right? Like, you like things because you work hard on it. Someone shows you a project that they worked on. They're like, oh, I've been working on this like video for like 8 months. Like, check it out. Like, you can see in their face how much they love the video. Like, even if it sucks, like, they love it because of what it is. So on the same note, if you want people to like you and your magic more, they need to invest in it. So if they're just sitting there with their hands in their lap watching you spew off words a mile a minute and dance and do your performance or whatever, and they're just like, when is this over? Like, when does they're not invested in it. They didn't put anything in, so they don't care about the result.
And there's another interesting point to that as well, which picks up on what you're saying about if they're just watching you spew off words 100 words a minute and do a dance. Now, I can't remember his name on the tip of my tongue. There's a magician that says, the real like art of magic is pretending that you're seeing the trick for the first time too, right? And, or, reacting like you're seeing the trick for the first time too. If people can see, like, magicians should script their magic. They should have at least a loose script, but it's good to script your magic. But if people can see you performing and you're sticking to a tight script, and then when someone ad-libs to you, you look up, and I see it with so many magicians, even some of the best pros in the world, they'll look up, they'll go, huh, and they'll just look back down and carry on performing. Well, it makes the magic, I think it really makes the magic weaker, because the audience just feels that if he deviates from that script right now, this will not work. Whereas if you could really do what you're saying you could do, when you could put your cards down, you could have a chat, and then, there should be no script in their eyes, in the audience's eyes, because if you could really do it, then, you may as well be having a cup of coffee, having a chat, having a laugh, and the coin vanishes, and you carry on with the day. But if it's a strict script and it's learned like a dance routine, and if you put 1 foot wrong, the whole routine breaks down, you've got to start again. Well, that's not organic feeling magic. That's just somebody doing theater.
For sure.
I think it's a massive difference between that.
For sure. The next section in our rapid fire end off segment is the question of the week. We have lots of magicians who love to ponder on and reply and share their ideas, their thoughts, their opinions. So you have a question that everyone can answer about themselves, about magic, whether it's something that you want to collect data on or something that you want people to be introspective on. You have a question to ask all the magicians of the world. What is it?
Oh, I had a few running through my head, and there's so many people listening, and I've gone a bit blank now. One question that I particularly like is, it's so tricky. What does everyone want to see from the industry, right? Because
beautiful.
You see magic companies putting out tricks, and they're good tricks, and then people hate it that they're putting out tricks that are just tricks for being new tricks.
Right.
And then you see magic companies do different things, like trying to do like Magic Stream, which is like a Netflix version of magic, and then people hate on that too, or they love it. And everyone's trying to find that new area. Everyone's trying to find whether it's a new trick or a format of putting tricks out. I just want to know, just for my own safety, was it like sanctity of mind? Like, what's the communal thought between where you want to see the magic industry go? Not so much the art form, but like the industry of magic. Where do they want to see it move forward to?
And one of the things I'll make a note on that, which is so interesting, is people are always talking about how, Matt, like there's so much, because of the internet, blah, 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 like all this negative, like mumbo jumbo. And my thought is the internet's not going anywhere. So what are we going to do about it? Right. So instead of everyone being all up in arms about how you can go on YouTube and find something great. It's not great that people are exposing other people's tricks on YouTube. I agree. Anyways, what can we do to make it a great place? We can't shut down the internet. We can't reopen up old magic shops that are closed down. Like there's only like we have
magic belongs in printed text, and printing presses. It's the only way.
It's such a multifaceted. There's so many different answers that can come back because you see trailers. We've started doing some extremely honest trailers lately, and then some people love it, and then some people complain that it's too honest. Then you do a trailer where the part where you would want to be honest, you hide because so many people complained the last time, and then people go crazy that they didn't know it before they buy it.
That's one thing. What do you want? Me? Who the hell cares if you know the method watching the trailer? The lay audience is not watching it. Like you're not going to be like, oh, I can't do the trick now. Everyone knows how it works. Like if you look at the gimmick and decide if it is something you'll use, like it makes so much sense.
There is. I will mention on that, which is an interesting topic, which we can talk about for a minute. But there's an interesting discrepancy which happens to people in Magic, where this is the story. First, you start Magic and you go to the magic shop and everything fools you. And as soon as he fools you, you buy it because you're like, this is crazy. I got to know how this works. I got to do this. Then that happens. And then things stop fooling you. And then it happens again. Something fools you and you buy it. And then you realize that you're just buying stuff that fools you. And that might not be the best approach in order for you to be a magician, And maybe you need to.
So
and like that, it happens. And it's happened to everybody. And like that's sort of how, in my opinion, that's sort of how the like what I'll call the trailer problem, came to be. Whereas like all Magic trailers forever were made to be like, how could this possibly work? Because people bought what they were fooled by, and it takes a level of informedness, a level of information to know, no, maybe I need to buy stuff that applies to me and works with me. And it takes a certain level of like self-awareness to know like what kind of magic is for you and things like that.
You know what? Like I put out like, tricks to community, and I don't think some people realize that you see these guys out there on Instagram, they buy everything and they try and perform everything in their set. In reality, if I have a new trick that I'm obsessed with, what I'll do is I'll work on it, I'll develop it, I'll create it, I'll put it in my set. But my normal set is pretty standard stuff. I open with like usually Crazy Man's handcuffs and then a variant on it. And then I'll do like 2-card Monty and, I have like my own touch on it and stuff. But, it's a generic set of stuff. And then I'll throw in somewhere along the way the new trick that I'm obsessed with at the moment. Yeah. But most of the magic I do is just that time-proven classic stuff that just gets great reactions. I put my own spin on it so it suits the way I perform. And then, I'll throw in 1 or 2 tricks of my own throughout the evening, just because I want to. But I think that's a really good point. People should realize that magic tricks for magicians shouldn't be everything you put in your set. Maybe 1 or 2, but just remember that like what works for audiences.
And it is, and I will mention, it is hard. It's hard to forget what would fool you. Like it's hard to know like what would fool me if I didn't know anything about magic. Like sometimes people ask me like, is this fooling? And my answer is, I know too much. Like I don't I can't. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. And, like to me, this is so obvious, but I'm ruined.
I've been so many things that are so deceptive are so glaringly obvious. Right?
Have you seen that? Like, is it like the target number by like Karmalovich or Karmilovich? Have you seen that? Like,
no.
Oh god, it's like so simple how it works, but destroys people in a crowd. And Dwayne Williams showed it to me, and it like messed my head up. And it was just a super basic trick, and so many magicians forget about it. The effect looks kind of like this. It's like you say, I want you all. I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 100. I've written a prediction. I want you all to try and guess my number, and everyone takes a guess, and whatever they are, you go to like the last person. You go, no, you were the closest. It was actually 54. You were off by 12, and then they open up the piece of paper and it says, the last person will be off by 12.
Right.
It's that old principle. You just write that last person will be off by 12.
Yeah.
Whatever number they say, you quickly throw in your number at the end. But if they say, if they say 66, you go, it was 54, wrong again. And then you say, open up the piece of paper. Oh my God, you're off by 12. And it's a stone cold killer. It actually fries. And it's so simple that a lot of magicians just completely discount it. And honestly, if I've got nothing at all, I'll just borrow someone's phone, write it in their notes, and just go into that.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that if people are overthinking it,
and that's why, like, I don't mean anything negative by warning people about buying tricks that you think would be good for you and not just tricks that fool you, because it's hard to think like a spectator, but like we have to try, and whatever ways you have to do that, whether it means calling up a spectator friend and saying, would this be cool, and having them say, no, that's stupid, or having them say, I don't, if you could do that, that would be a miracle. You're like, great, I'll be back in a minute, so whichever way you do it, absolutely. But just to mention that it's not easy, but it is it's definitely necessary. The second last segment in this ending segment is the best part. So each one of us goes around and mentions, some part of this podcast that we thought, from this episode, that we thought was the best, because, we've been recording for over an hour and a lot of people are washing dishes or driving their car and maybe they missed something, and I just want to have some sort of take home point or highlight about a best part. So for me, I thought it was so interesting to just hear about the quantity of people who are sending stuff in and a lot of the common pitfalls of people that are trying to get their tricks accepted, because it's a reminder as to how many people in this world just want to have something released by Ellusionist, and don't necessarily put in the groundwork to make that happen, or don't necessarily know what it takes. So it's just super interesting to hear that and to put into perspective what it takes to get noticed by Ellusionist, and what it takes to make a good and new and interesting effect that's worthy of releasing, and just to hear that side of it. So that was particularly interesting for me. Tyler, what about you?
I really enjoyed hearing or not really hearing from you, but the discovery of how important influences in magic are, and hearing your story of how you got into magic and how that sort of shaped who you are as a magician now, and not only how it shapes you as a performer, how your influences shape you as a performer, but they shape your goals and what you try to achieve with your magic. I thought that was very interesting. And though this wasn't a story that we haven't heard before, it just seemed in the episode, the 2 points that came one after another was the fact that you were so obsessed with magic that you were homeless, and that this year you bought your first home with magic. So true. Congratulations.
Ooh, nice tied together, man.
Yeah, I've been holding on to that one this whole time.
That was good.
Oh, God, that was slick. How do I top that? Oh, I know. Okay, so what's my favorite part of the podcast? Yep. Definitely the Susan Ale Bum Party.
That's great, isn't it? Sue's anal bum party. It's too good.
No, do you know what? Actually, I'm really excited to see if anyone actually goes off and tries the contest to do a Torn Sword card.
Yeah.
Just by ripping it in half cleanly, no creases. Try to stick it back together. Upload it to Instagram. #Discourse in Magic, and let's see next week.
Yeah.
If people do it and there's a winner, I will send them a deck of cards.
Amazing.
100%.
I am mega excited. And the last and final section is the plug. So what do you have to plug? What do you have to tell the world to go and take a look at, buy, follow you, whatever?
Don't follow me. My stuff is boring. It's rubbish. It'll bore you to death. If you do want to check out like some of the visual stuff I've been talking about, just hit me up at Instagram at Lloyd Barnes, LLOYD BARNES. It's a weird Welsh name. But yeah, if you are interested to like sort of watch back some of the stuff that we've been talking about, so you can see it as we're talking about it, that's probably the best place to go.
Amazing. And with that, I want to give you a big, huge thank you for joining us on the episode. It was really fun, really cool insight, good chatting about performing magic, releasing magic, the magic industry, and ins and outs like that. And I'm very excited to hear about the reception of the episode. And I'm excited to hear about, people taking on that challenge and people, particularly your question about what people want to see in the magic industry, because I agree with you. It seems like no matter what company releases what, there's always half the people are excited and the other half the people are complaining. So I want to know what'll make them stop complaining. So
Man, if we can find that out from this episode, then
we'll end it right here. We will end it. We're not releasing.
Also,
we're not going to do 100.
Thank you guys for having me on. I know we've been commenting back and forth on Instagram, like periodically. But it's been awesome to actually sit down and chat with you and have a laugh. I've been belly laughing for most of this episode.
Yeah, we've been having a pretty good time.
Well,
thank you so much. And once again, big thank you to all the people at home who tuned in again for an episode. This is a reminder once again that you can listen to an hour-plus long episode without doing things with playing cards. That's right. That was all theory, all for your ears, and y'all did a great job listening. So thank you all so much, and we'll see you all next Thursday.
Take care.
Well, there you go, episode 97. A few quick reminders. Number 1, make sure to enter the contest. Tag at Discourse in Magic, tag at Lloyd Barnes and at Ellusionist. And if you can possibly find a way to beat me, then Lloyd is going to send you a deck of cards from Ellusionist right for you. So try to do that. And number 2, is please share this episode. I don't care. Share it on Facebook, share it on Twitter, share it on Instagram, send a message, write a letter to someone who needs to hear it. But, it's a podcast. It's not a crazy video series that gets shared. It really only spreads by word of mouth. So your word of mouth is my oxygen. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you all next Thursday. Peace.